Welcome once again to Lynda Rose. And I know we keep saying this, Lynda, but never have we been in times like this. And you might say, oh, it was worse in World War II or whatever. And it was bad, as we know, VE celebrations at the moment. But in the world that carries on, the so-called normal world, things are being normalized that are not normal. The world is standing on its head. And we're going to talk a bit about this today. And one really wonders where the end will be. And we're going to kick off with the wretched mantra of diversity, equality, and inclusivity, DEI. Apparently, in Latin, you're good at Latin, that means God's small g, does it?
Yes, it struck me the other day because suddenly everywhere you look, people are talking about DEI policies, DEI policies. And I looked at that and I thought, oh, that's a bit odd because, of course, in Latin, Deus means God, and Dei is the plural, which means gods. So what we are promoting is apparently gods. Now, to me, that says we are promoting the worship of false gods because there is only one God. And yet, all these Dei policies are promoting this worship of all these inclusive gods. It's quite astonishing, isn't it, Rodney?
Well, it is until you look at what is actually happening, even to the king. I mean, we've had Easter there that's hardly been mentioned by the head of the church, and other people coming along saying, oh, it's Ramadan. Isn't that a good coincidence? Let's promote Ramadan. Of course, Sir Keir, who is the famous atheist in charge of our land, is congratulating everybody except Christians.
Yes, it really is quite astonishing that there has been so little attention paid to Easter this year. But as usual, so much attention paid to Islam and Ramadan. We've got Ramadan lights in London. We've had Ramadan, all their encouragement to prepare meals for Muslims at night so that they can break their fast. Did you, I'm probably a bit naughty saying this, but as far as I can make out, Muslims eat more in Ramadan than any other time of the year. Because, okay, they don't eat between sunrise and sunset, but come sunset, they're buying in extra supplies of food, they're gathering together. Whoopee! They're really eating. I don't know, is that very naughty of me to say that? But it
Oh,
really is
terrible.
strange.
Yeah, that's hate speech. Be careful. Uh,
I'm
well,
not trying to hate. I'm just I just find it's so funny at one level, actually.
it is. Yes, one thinks of stomachs and growing girth and waistlines. But it goes beyond that, doesn't it? Because NHS, the god of England in many cases, we're so much better than everybody else with healthcare. Sorry, no. And the hole seems to be getting bigger and deeper, and they keep digging. Now, why they're digging is to get us to become Muslims. I can't believe I'm saying this. If you'd have mentioned this 10 years ago, you'd have thought you were from the planet Zog. But that is what's happening in dear old NHS. We are having to, not having, it's not compulsory, not yet, books and posters all over NHS establishments, hospitals, etc., saying, become a Muslim, it's the best thing you'll ever do. What about that?
Well, I think they would strongly deny that they're actually actively encouraging everyone to become Muslim, but it is a fact that there has only in the last couple of weeks been a booklet published given to every member of the NHS, and it's supposedly addressed to new Muslims. But it does have that memorable phrase which you've just quoted. Converting to Islam would be the best decision you can ever make. And it goes on to just spell out how to convert, how to live with your new conversion, how to tell your family, how to spread Islam. So it is a proselytizing booklet. And the reason that they give for putting this out is that they are a very inclusive and diverse body. And they want to acknowledge the fact they have a lot of Muslim workers. So they are just doing this to express solidarity and their just general, it goes beyond tolerance, their general acceptance of Islam. This is the same body that has been so um, active in marginalizing and suppressing any expression of Christianity or manifestation of Christian faith. So, we've seen doctors being penalized and even sacked for sharing their faith. We've seen nurses being disciplined and sacked for wearing a cross. We've seen the most appalling things being done to people who dared pray with somebody, even when somebody's asked someone else to pray with them. This is NHS England. So it's very, very strange that on the one hand, they are saying they are not going to tolerate any expression of religion because it's exploiting people at their most vulnerable, i.e., they're not going to allow Christians to say anything. But on the other, they're actively encouraging and promoting Muslims to share their faith. And they were even in Ramadan encouraging all members of the NHS to fast along with their Muslim colleagues in order to understand the pressures that Muslim colleagues were under in not eating during the day and to express solidarity. So there's such a double standard going on here, Rodney, that is actually quite alarming because it does seem to be a policy motivated by extreme prejudice against Christians. And I don't know how else to put it.
Well, it goes beyond that, as we both know, because we've got a situation, let's face facts here, that not all Muslims are the same. There are certain Muslims that have integrated into English society and have got down, holding down good jobs. And there's others that are listening to the radicals. And let's face it, this comes through their own Bible saying the West is to be taken over at any cost. And the dhimmis, that's us, are to be cruelly treated in all this. It is not exactly a religion of love, quite the opposite. Maybe that's playing into their hands that Christianity is a religion of love and peace and goodwill towards fellow men. Certainly, Islam is not, as stated in many passages of the Quran, and we're letting it happen, even to the extent that we've got Sharia courts, whether they be official, they're not, but unofficially, our leaders are actually accepting Sharia court outcomes. Now, if people cannot see this, there's none so blind that those that cannot see.
This is absolutely true, Rodney. And at one level, I just don't know how to answer you because, yes, you're so right. And I was just thinking as you were saying that about, various parts of the Quran, and I was thinking of Surah 9, 5, which actually calls for death for all non-believers. Now, that's repeated so often in the Quran. And these days, people are saying, oh, well, no, 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 you're misinterpreting the Quran. And they're playing down these passages. But actually, the strand goes all through the Quran. It's there. And we do know that a lot of, they call them radicalized Muslims. I don't know how radicalized they are. These young men, these people, young women who believe the Quran 100% and actually are still motivated by what appears to be extreme hatred for non-believers. So it's
If you think you're getting a bad deal from Islam, if you're a Christian, don't even compare it with the Jews. They want to kill every Jew on the face of the earth, and that again is stated in the Quran.
it is absolutely I come back to the point that what we are seeing in the world today at whole is a spiritual conflict. And it is between good and evil. And I think the Jews are so singled out for this kind of aggression because they are God's chosen people. They're still God's chosen people. After the fall, God chose the Jewish nation, well, He made them into a nation to be His own people, to reveal Himself to them so that in time He would use them to become the agents, the host for His Son, who would take human form and go head to head with Satan. That's what happened with Jesus. And I do honestly believe that the extreme hatred that we see being expressed towards the Jews today is an outworking of that because God still has his hand upon the Jewish nation and upon Christians. And it is, I think, it manifests in this conflict that will never be resolved between good and between evil. And very, very sadly, what we do see in Islam, as you've just said, is this extreme hatred for the Jews. And we've all heard those phrases, from the river to the sea, and in Iran calling for the Jewish nation to be wiped off the face of the earth and for all Jews to be exterminated. They're actively calling for that. It's unbelievable. Can you imagine if in the UK or in Spain we actually stood up and called for the extermination of an entire racial group? It's unthinkable. And yet this is justified within the Quran, which is why we're seeing so much manifestation of this extreme behavior towards the Jews and towards Christians. That too.
Our leaders are not helping. Sir Keir Starmer's stated he's an atheist and he's running the nation. Goodness knows who's running the NHS, but I suspect of the same ilk. And we get something here that cannot work in a business sense. That's the NHS. It's been proved so completely. 100% people, even from the socialist side in Britain, have said, no, it isn't working. It's all right that we invented that, but it's long past its so-called sell-by date. And something dramatic has got to happen. But it ain't celebrating Ramadan and encouraging conversion to Islam. That's the last thing we need for the NHS. The other thing we've got to mention is that we're talking about culture here, Lynda. We've had Christianity as the centre of our nation, never mind 1215 and all that, 43 AD. That's a long time ago. And we're rejecting all that now at our peril.
Yes. People are always astonished when you say that Christianity first came to the shores of Britain in AD 43, but of course it did, and it was brought by the Romans, by Roman traders. And it's very tiny seeds that were sown. But boy, did they take root. And yes, we have been a Christian nation for centuries. And while we have tried to keep faith, and we've never been perfect, because hey, nobody's perfect. But while we have tried to keep faith, hasn't God blessed us? Hasn't He protected us? Hasn't He delivered us countless numbers of times from what looked like complete annihilation? But we have been His people down the centuries. And now that faith is under attack. And you're absolutely right that actually we're letting it happen. This is very bad news. We are still a Christian nation. And if we will only come back to God and just come back to obedience and repent of the way, I know that sounds awfully biblical, but repent of the way that we've been behaving, God Himself will act on our behalf because I honestly believe, Rodney, that He still has a purpose for this nation. He's never given up on us, He's never given up on humanity. God loves us and He wants to use us. And that's why it's so important that we actually do stand up against what is a takeover, basically. That's what we're seeing. You know, Islam is trying to take over. We know that from various things that they've said. Secularism is trying to take over. And we know that if we read their sort of, secular manifestos. We need to recognize that all these things are actually an attack on our heritage, on who we are, on our faith, on our relationship with God. And we need to come back to that and recover who we are. We need to be proud of our heritage. And okay, I know we've got things wrong, but God has led us over the centuries. And we need to be so proud of that fact. We need to stand on that fact. We need to stand now for the truth, for our belief, for God.
Well, as a minister, as a priest in the Anglican Church, also as a barrister,
Hmm.
you can
Former
combine those
barrister.
two. Former barrister, you can combine those accolades if you wish, and think about what is really happening and what is the cause and effect to our nation. And I want to stay just for a second on that medical theme and look at the BMA Young Doctors gang.
Hmm.
And I believe that's the right word to call them a gang because they're clearly Marxists. They allowed people to die in the recent debacle to get their own way. The figures that came out were, well, they were lies, but one doesn't expect anything else from atheism, Marxism. And they're the ones that now are saying the Supreme Court are wrong about women being women and men being men. And I see this matter as not being closed yet because they're kicking off now about that. We as medical students know that there is a grey area, that covers 100% of the population. I mean, scientifically and medically, they are utterly wrong. And yet, some people listen to them. What a nonsense.
It is a nonsense, and it's absolutely astonishing that they call the ruling of the Supreme Court, was it uh God, I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something like biologically illiterate.
Yes.
I mean, it's unbelievable because I don't know what they're basing their statement on. Are they basing the statement on the fact that in some very, very few cases there are people who are born intersex, with the wrong chromosome numbers? Because that it's a medical condition. It is not the normal state of how we are born. These poor people need help. It's if you like being born with an illness, just spina bifida. It's like saying everybody has spina bifida. No, people with these conditions need help. It is not the same. You cannot say this is a grey area. Biologically, that is the truth. No, it is not the truth. And what you have to ask yourself, Rodney, if these young doctors are coming out with this, forgive my saying it, rubbish, are we to say that actually medical schools have stopped teaching anatomy and basic biology? Because how can they believe what they're saying if they actually are being taught biology? So this ideological drive, my goodness, I wouldn't want to be taught by treated by one of these people because how could I trust them to make a proper assessment of any kind of medical condition?
Well, it's prioritizing things, isn't it? DEI obviously comes before medical
Hmm.
science. And again, before finally leaving the medical profession, the assisted dying bill is coming up in a few days.
Yes.
And if you look at what's coming out of Canada, who are way ahead on this, I mean, it's happened again this very week. They're listening to a 16-year-old autistic child who wants to die. And they've put her on the list of candidates. It is utter and completely godless madness. And it's going to happen in Britain. Thin end of the wedge, it always does.
It will, and I actually find it heartbreaking, Rodney, because I truly believe that we're all made in the image of God, and we're none of us perfect. We all have problems, we all have challenges, and I believe that we need to care for everybody and to help. And I mean, there are increasing numbers of people, especially children, being diagnosed with autism. I don't know where this is coming from because, one wasn't aware of any of this years ago. But so many people are now being diagnosed autistic and neurodivergent. I think they need helping. I don't think they need exterminating. And, I can well understand they get depressed, they get frightened, they say, I want to die. People can say that at certain points and give them a few weeks, and that's completely gone because they get hope. They want to continue. And it is not right to just say, well, we just wash our hands of you. Gosh, you're such a difficult case. You want to die? Okay, we'll help you to die. Or not help you to die, we'll kill you, actually. No, as a society, we must recover that love for others and that care that actually comes alongside people when they are in those appalling places of extremis and of despair. We need to be light in the darkness. We need to be hope. We need to say, you're not alone. I'm here. I'm going to help. With God's help, we can get through this. And it is just so wrong what is happening. Yes, one sees what's happening in Canada, in the US, over in the Netherlands, Belgium. It's all coming here. Euthanizing children of, I think 7 is the youngest age that we've had so far. Tell me, how can a 7-year-old make a settled decision? I want to die. They don't know anything. This is not compassion. This is cruelty. And it is wrong. You cannot impose this just because a few people say, I want the right to kill myself when I am in this state. They have that right already. They can choose to end their own lives. You cannot impose that, though, onto medical staff to do it for you. You cannot impose it onto society as justification for what you want. This is not compassion. This is extreme cruelty. And we really have got to resist this move to legalize the killing of the innocent, the vulnerable, those we see as of less value. Nobody is of less value. Everybody matters, and we must love each other equally.
You and I know that we've had this sort of situation for many, many years in Britain and in many other countries, whereby a person has been allowed to die and encouraged to die. They call it nice names like the Liverpool pathway. Call it what you like, but it's the clever use of drugs to make the ending, they say, more comfortable, certainly more rapid. I've had a very close call in the last few months, and I had one of my medic friends in Britain say, "You're lucky you weren't here, Rodney, because you wouldn't be here. The doors would have closed behind you in the operating theatre, and you'd have been left to die." That's not really a comfort that we were in Spain that looked after me and the family. But that is a fact, and it's a frightening fact. Oh, well, he's of a certain age. Let's not hurry. Maybe the family would be better off without him. All sorts of things can be said, and have regularly on a daily basis. Drugs have been given in and outside old people's homes. It goes on everywhere. We're about to do a series on this. We've done investigations, and having personally experienced the nearness of what we're talking about, then I feel passionately about this. It's a horrible situation. If you're no good any longer for the economy, if you're considered too old or too far gone with a medical condition, whatever your age, then it's an easy out. You're going to cost the state a fortune. Let's relieve him of his responsibility. It's awful, but this is atheist thinking.
Yes, it is. I'm very pleased to hear that you are going to be making a serious looking at this because there's a terrible abuse going on. And look at you now. A few months ago, they said always quality of life isn't good enough, and he's had a good life.
Yeah.
It's appalling. This is just murder of those who actually we
That's
don't
the word.
use anymore. Yeah. So, as I say, I think you are a real testimony to how wrong this policy is, and I really am delighted that you are going to be making this series.
Lastly, we've got to say that we've got to not elect Angela's bill. The lovely Angela Rayner has come along with an employment rights bill, and again about to descend on us. People have got no idea of the implications of this, and are still an employer of many people in the United Kingdom. Not so many in Spain, but certainly in the United Kingdom, where the bill is going to go through. It's extremely left wing. We're going to be indoctrinated because we've got to go along the DEI route for retraining that anybody that steps the other side of the line, oh, you've got to go for retraining. And you can't say things like that. And you've got all the rights, as if small businesses weren't carrying enough burden as it was. Perhaps they want to get rid of small businesses. Well, they're going the right way about it. But these look innocuous at the beginning, these bills that are going through. But if you look at the tiny print, wow, the implication of your so-called rights. And again, it's the state there, Big Brother deciding on life and death, who has a job, who doesn't have a job, who do we pay benefits to and allow to stay at home. Oh, we're in a pickle.
We most certainly are. I think you're very right when you say that so many of the bills coming through, they have these very innocuous looking little clauses. And we all think, oh, that's all right, that's a good idea. Yeah, okay. Then we wrote these things in, and they had the most appalling effect. Our economy has already been hugely damaged by so many things that have been brought in just these last few weeks. And it's not just, work for, look at the climate change laws that are coming in. Again, it's having the most appalling effect. And of course, Ron, I think in Spain, you suffered the effects of this.
It was awful. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not a question of, oh, you're without electricity. No, we were out with any communication at all. Mr. Putin could have been knocking on the door as far as we are aware. Nobody knew anything. The police, the forces, nobody knew anything. It was deliberately kept quiet until they could think of a reason or an excuse. And of course, we now know the truth. It's coming out that we said day one. It's the stupid net zero gang again. They put so much electricity because it was particularly sunny just round the corner from where we are in southwest Spain. And the whole system, the whole network got overloaded, and they didn't have the proper attenuators to smooth out the amount of electricity being received. It blew everything. And it was only Portugal that, first of all, because the Portuguese, generally speaking, don't like the Spaniards very much. They said it's your fault, and everybody said, oh, you would say that. Well, they were right. But this is going to happen in the future. We're trying to be God without the scientific knowledge of God.
And we're driven by ideology.
Yes.
This is the thing, and it ain't going to work, Rodney.
No. Oh, well, we've been cheerful this morning, haven't we? Well, no, we want to make people aware of what is really going on. And that lovely phrase, the devil is in the detail, is absolutely true when we look at the acts going through Parliament.
Absolutely. Yes, which is
Come
why
on,
we
let's finish on hope. Come on. Now, I'm going to mention a terrible word I'm going to be in trouble with. Begins with T. Trump. Trump is getting rid of DEI like you wouldn't believe. And I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
it actually is coming over the pond. And there are signs that people are saying now, especially employers who have been taken in by this lie, even big employers, oh, yeah, we're going a bit too far here.
I agree. I think that's a good product of the Trump administration so far. I have to say, I'm not so affirmative or supportive of some of his other policies, which I think are actually wreaking absolute mayhem. But I do, yes, his approach to the
I don't know how you can say that. He's going to give Canada to the United Kingdom. That's the object of saying we'll take no ITs. That he does get a bit expansive in his speech and is not very wise in certain things. But I'll tell you what, things are happening that we can blame Trump for good and for bad. This is
yes,
a good thing.
yes. I know it's all bit of a curate's egg at the moment. We have to see where it's all going to land. But
Yeah.
anything he can do to get rid of these really pernicious and dangerous policies has got to be good. And yes, we are seeing little shoots of greenery
Yeah.
everywhere. I mean,
But
reform.
you were a curate once. Come on, you should know.
What about curate's eggs?
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, you've got words of wisdom from the curate himself, herself already. Lynda, thank you so much. At least we've got plenty of things to think and pray about, haven't we?
We have indeed. It's been a joy, Rodney. Thank you.
See you next time.
Absolutely.